Billionaire from Alex, ladies and gentlemen, your boy Monde is back in the building. I am at Media 24. I'm with the one and only Qaanitah Hunter. Ma'am, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great, ma'am. Great to have you here. Thank you for coming on our show. This is All Things Success, but then we've got another different channel not a channel rather, but a different show where it's called All Things Perspective. We want to discuss politics. Why? Because today we're actually here to discuss your book, Who Will Rule South Africa? Guys, go and get it. Miss Hunter here I don't know if it's Miss or Mrs.
No, Miss Hunter.
Miss Hunter.
Qaanitah, please.
Yes, okay. Qaanitah has actually written a book with Mr. Adrian Basson, whom we're expecting soon. Be on the lookout for that. Who Will Rule South Africa? Ma'am, why this book and why now? Why Who Will Rule South Africa?
Okay, so I have been a political reporter and editor for a long time in South Africa.
Yes.
And this 2024 elections was positioned as an important milestone for South Africa as we celebrate 30 years of democracy.
Okay.
And so for me, what writing this book was about was simply answering three questions that everybody asks. Whether you're an academic, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a tanny at a braai on a Saturday afternoon,
Yeah.
you ask the question, what is happening to South Africa?
Yes.
Right? So for me, there was three things that I set up to do when we wrote this book. Where do we come from as a country? Where are we now? And where are we headed to?
Okay.
And the question really is, whether you're young, whether you're old, is there any hope for South Africa?
Yes.
Are we becoming a failed state?
Yes.
And so the question can't be answered in 140 characters. It needs a little bit of a deep dive into understanding our history, making sense of our present, and predicting the future.
Oh, okay. Wow, that is interesting. And I want us to get right into it. You know, as a young person, I personally will be voting for the first time. I hope you guys are registered there, guys at home. Please do register to vote.
You're voting for the first time?
I'm voting for the first time. Well, it depends on who I'm voting for, you know, because I'm still deciding. For me, there's three parties that I'm interested in. I'm not voting for the older parties. I'm looking at a party that's going to prioritize the youth. Most importantly, unemployment, youth development, and just the issues of crime, you know, because I believe unemployment and crime are interlinked in a way. So yeah, I'm looking at that. But I want to know, with regards to your view, who do you think will rule South Africa?
Me and you.
Okay. Why do you say me and you? What do you mean? Are you saying maybe communities perhaps? Or is it just going to be individuals?
So we use the word rule South Africa.
Yes.
In South Africa, we are not a monarchy, right? We are a democratic government.
Yes.
And so whoever is elected will govern South Africa.
Okay.
So this is the play on words that we did. Because I'm going to spoil the book and say that what we set out to do in this book is to explain how you and I are in control of the future of South Africa.
Okay.
And so if you ask the question, what's going to happen to South Africa? Are we going to become a failed state? I ask the question, do you want it to become a failed state? And the role of the individual within the democracy is something that we have been sort of exploring. Because at the end of the day, political parties are our employees.
Yes.
So we need to figure out who we're going to hire for 5 years. But at the crux of it, the future of South Africa is not linked entirely to these people that we hire for 5 years. It is determined on whether me and you are committed to this country and this democratic project. Because this 30 years that we have is only, it's dependent on whether we have another 30 years of democracy. Is dependent on whether we really want this democracy. Do we really want this democracy?
Okay.
And so the idea that we outsource politics to politicians, that they must sort it out for us. We've done it for the last 10, 15, 20 years even, and it hasn't paid out. And so the idea that communities have to take things back into their own hands. And so regardless of who you vote for, say you vote for, give me the most absurd party that you wouldn't vote for.
The most absurd party.
Yeah.
Freedom Front Plus.
Right, say you vote for Freedom Front Plus.
Sorry, Freedom Front Plus. No offense.
No vote for you. But point is, you have to walk the journey of democracy with Freedom Front Plus.
Okay.
You have to hold your representatives accountable. You have to be participatory in this democratic project. Because what we did was, we have this really incredible system of a participatory democracy. And what we do is we vote, and then we go back to our lives.
Okay.
And then again, we are victims of that vote because, okay, oops, nothing happened for us. Let's go back and vote again. Even if you change your vote or you vote for the same party. But voting is the bare minimum manifestation of democratic practice. That's the least you can do.
Wow, okay. So you're saying it's our responsibility as citizens to take the initiative to actually make sure that our country is well governed, it's well run.
Absolutely, and that starts with information, and that's what we did in this book. We said, okay, there are some things that are not sexy. You know, they to understand nuance, to understand what really is the ESCOM problem. Because you'll have young people say, oh yeah, we don't have load shedding under Zuma. And like, my guy, there was a reason for that. They were burning billions of rands, you know, on corruptly on diesel, on burning diesel to keep the lights on.
My goodness.
And so,
how many people are privy to this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so the idea then that we, number one, we need to be informed citizenry. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Secondly, we need to be an engaged citizenry. Let me give you an example.
Yes. I strongly believe in that.
Let me tell you an example. Midval in south of Gauteng. It is one of the best run municipalities, and it was a DA municipality. So there's Midval that's here, and there's Mfuleni that's here. Chalk and cheese. Midval run by the DA, efficient, well run. Mfuleni, literally you can't drink the water. It's awful. But next to each other, right? So the mayor of Midval, Bongani Baloyi, now he was the DA mayor, but now he's running his own party to over. I sat down with him after he finished his term as mayor, and I said to him, like, wow, how did you make it work? And he says, these residents would have never allowed me not to. They're breathing down my neck. And then I realized, in affluent communities, in communities that where rich people live,
yes,
things work. Why? Because people are engaged. There is no way a councillor will misstep. Do you know who your street councillor?
I know my ward councillor.
You know your ward councillor
because I'm now interested in politics. I need to know who I'm voting for.
But the idea is, we don't know. We and especially our generation have become so disinterested, where we only look for the councillor's name when things are extremely problematic.
Yeah. And
it's not only about the councillor; it's understanding legislation, it's understanding processes, it's understanding, and then your role in all of that, in participation, in community forums.
Yes.
And so, I know it sounds like unattainable. It sounds like it's too big of a project, because how are you as one person going to change a faltering society?
Yeah.
But if you as a one person run a WhatsApp group just for the security of your street, and I do that in my street, and you do that in your street, together we can help the crime problem.
That's so true. But don't you think maybe this thing should be instilled within the schooling system? I mean, we speak about things like voter education. This thing should probably be in the curriculum, like in part of life orientation, or on that odd week.
Yeah.
You just have, on Friday, you cut out the lessons from like maybe 12 o'clock and you start teaching people about the country more in detail.
Yeah.
Not just a brief history lesson, well, South Africa's a democracy and so forth. Just a proper lesson structured. Guys, this is what governance means. This is how a bill, a law is passed.
If you have to ask an average 18-year-old, can you explain to me the difference between the 3 tiers of government, national, provincial, and municipal? They can't.
Yeah.
If you have to ask an average South African, explain the 3 arms of the state, the legislative arm, the judicial arm, and the executive arm, they can't do that. And we then are victims of the failings of these arms of the state. So when Parliament is completely hamstrung, as the Zondo Commission showed us, that Parliament didn't do its job in the state capture years, it was like, corruption. You need to engage why this is happening. Why did we have a situation where a president and his cronies could loot the state?
But now, I just want to get into the company you work for now.
Yeah.
I'm obviously advertised that I'll be coming here to you. A number of my viewers are asking, why are you guys so biased, especially about your partner in crime, there, Mr. Adrian Kasson. They're saying you guys are biased in your reporting.
If you think you're biased, I don't think we are biased. I think people are entitled to their own views. I think that we have a press code in South Africa which we adhere to the latter. I think that we have an internal ombudsman. And if people believe we are biased, there is mechanisms to take and people have taken it up, to take things up to the press ombudsman, to take things up to the press council. I think that News 24 has a high standard of journalistic ethics, and I think that we've done very well in that regard. If people believe that we're biased, I think show examples and engage on content. But I hope that people will read the book and engage more critically in what we write and kind of change their view.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Qaanitah actually, guys, she just told me that she's completing her master's. She's completed her master's. That's great, man. That's really great to hear. At least, pushing education as young people. It's very, very important to be educated. Just one last question before we're going to play a game about political parties. I would like to know, as a journalist in South Africa, are you not scared for your life or for your own safety when you report on these big politicians? Or, for example, you speaking about how the government was burning diesel during Zuma's time, right? So are you not scared though? Like you really want this information about people and it's so risky and you're a woman, all those stereotypes. Are you not scared?
I say this to people, I'm more scared to go and buy milk at night as a South African than I am in my job.
Yes.
It's dangerous being a woman in South Africa, period. Whatever job you have. Maybe I'm a little bit more at risk, but I think that you just have to hope for the best, because it's, anything, people are like, oh, aren't you worried? I'm like, aren't you worried too? Because, we can all be victims of crime, and we all have been victims of crime. And I think that if we lead with fear, we will not be able to do the work that we do.
Yes.
It is part of journalistic integrity to report without fear and favor. And I think that that's what I sought to do in my entire career, to say, regardless of the threats, regardless of the consequences, we're going to tell you how it is. And so this is my fourth book, my third political book. We wrote a book called 8 Days in July in 2021 on the July unrest.
Oh,
and that
yes.
put us in real jeopardy in some ways. But the reality of it, someone has to do it. We have to inform people. And if I have like one message to young people, is that it's not cool to be uneducated. It's not cool to have opinions that are simply based in misinformation and disinformation. There's so much of false news all over social media. Take the time to understand matters. Take the time to just know what's going on, to go to the next. If you don't like me, don't read my work. Read somebody's work, but read. Because I think what we tend to do is we create these worldviews and we perpetuate narratives that are so misguided. Because why? Simply we're just not informed to know what, we're not bothered to know what's actually at the crux of matters. And so whatever it is, you want to understand the fuel price, you want to understand the dollar, you understand South Africa's position on Israel, you want to, whatever it is, read. Because I think, for me, writing a book is not fun.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Very.
I've literally, in 5 years, wrote 3 books. And I don't know why I did it. It's hard. But for me, the value of this is sitting on a plane and the person next to me sitting and reading this book, and you're like, oh, I wrote this book, and the guy says to me, I really want to know, what is the future of South Africa? And that's why I bought this book. And I'm like, thank you. Because you may not agree with it, and it's fine if you may not agree with what I think the possible scenarios, but at least you have some basis to understand my rationale and question your pre-existing notions and come to your own opinion.
Okay, wow. Just before we go into our game, I just want you to share maybe a couple of links, things or places people can go to just get the basic information about their country. Like you spoke about the three arms of state rather. How can they find out about who they want to vote for?
Let's start about reading this book.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Where is it available? I just want you to know quickly. Who South Africa, guys? There it is.
At all bookstores. If anybody wants, if you are young and you can't afford a copy, send me an email, Qaanitah@gmail.com, and I can figure out how I can send you a copy.
Yes.
But I really do think that it just empowers you as you're thinking about voting,
yes.
especially now in the run-up to the elections. But there's a lot of information on SA Gov News. I think just read the news, invest in understanding what's going on. Whether you want to do it on the radio or television or TikTok, but just try to engage a bit further or ask questions. So when you have these pre-existing notions, just question yourself. Say, okay, why do I believe X?
Yes.
And why is my opinion on Y? When I say things like there's no hope for South Africa.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? Just interrogate these notions that you have, and you'll see it will take you down a very different path, and it'll take you down a path that basically says you are as vested in the future of the outcome as the next person, and actually we have more to determine the future of South Africa than these men on the cover of this book. Unfortunately, it's only men.
Oh, okay, wow. I can't say much about gender parity and things like that. But yeah, I just want us to go into our game. It's called In 10 Seconds.
Right.
So I'm going to give you names of political parties. I'm going to give you names of leaders.
Right.
And within 10 seconds, you just need to know what comes up to mind. What's your honest opinion about them? I just say a name, you shoot straight up, okay?
Right.
So I'm going to start with political parties.
Right.
ANC.
Led by Cyril Ramaphosa, oldest liberation movement in South
ANC. I'm
Africa.
just saying ANC, and then you tell me what comes up to mind in less than 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yes. ANC.
Oldest liberation movement in South Africa.
EFF.
Julius Malema, Red Berets, populist nationalization of land.
Okay. DA.
Opposition party in South Africa led by John Steenhuisen. You want my feelings?
I want your honest opinion. I can see you giving me a lot of they say it's PR answers, very clean, very neutral. I want your honest opinion on it.
Okay. DA, okay.
Yes. Should we start again?
Okay, let's start again.
Okay, I'm gonna start again. ANC.
Your struggling governing party will lose its majority in the elections.
Ooh, there we go. Now we're talking. EFF.
Destructive politics, populist politics may reach a ceiling in support in the coming elections.
DA.
I think really, really problematic views on race, divisive in many ways, and I think.
Bam. IFP.
Interesting. Zulu nationalist, leaning towards the right. Interesting to see how they led after Buthelezi passed away.
Patriotic Alliance.
Xenophobic.
Wow. Action SA.
Interesting but populist, leaning towards populism and also skirting in the xenophobic field.
ACDP.
Irrelevant.
Ooh, my goodness. Okay, what about the last one? I'm going to mention the Freedom Front Plus, the one I said I won't vote for.
Right-wing, conservative, Afrikaner, problematic policies around race. Interesting to see how they'll perform in the elections. You missed one. MK party.
Oh yes, MK, yes. Hey, how can I forget about Msholo? Hey, MK, yes, the newbie on the block.
Destructive politics.
Ooh, interesting.
Bad for democracy because they're participating in a democratic process that they undermine at every turn. But may perform well.
Okay, wow, that was interesting about the MK. But now I want us to move on to the leaders now.
Okay.
We spoke about the parties.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just go through the last two parties. I want to talk about the new entrants quickly.
Yeah.
Rise Mzansi.
Interesting ground support. They may perform better than other new political parties. I think they're very rich. They're moneyed. The campaign is moneyed.
One of the richest people actually funded them. They
Yes.
gave them 15 million. That's
Yeah.
what they stated. It's
Yeah.
very interesting though. Okay, Arise South Africa.
I don't know much about them. I think I only know their
Their leader.
yeah, and their controversy. I don't know anything else beyond that they've just been attacking the IEC.
Oh, okay. Now let's move on to leaders. Let's not waste any time because I know you're really pressed for time. But thank you so much
Sure.
for making time for us and coming to the channel. We really appreciate it. We just got to go through the leaders quickly. I'm going to start with Cyril Ramaphosa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, rather.
Someone who rules by consensus, doesn't make decisions, doesn't have a backbone.
Okay, wow. Wow, that's it. That's what I like. That's what I like. And what about his deputy, Mr. Paul Mashatile?
Strategist behind the scenes, controversial, has a lot to explain about his lifestyle.
Ooh, okay. Wow. And Julius Malema.
Populist leader, has the making of becoming a strongman autocrat. Flop-flops.
I think this is why maybe some of my viewers said you guys are biased because Julius Malema always mentions other leader. They say one thing and do another, but you never call them out for flip-flopping. But anyways, that's just something else. Okay, John Steenhuisen.
Politically petty. Has a lot of growing up to do in terms of politics, and will be judged on the performance of the DA this elections.
Okay, Herman Mashaba.
I was going to say something very, very controversial.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
Herman Mashaba, I think that he is committed to South Africa, but has a sense of self-importance. he let me
It's over. Time is up. Time is up.
I'm trying to be a politician.
Songezo Zibi, the
Smart.
leader of Rise Mzansi.
Smart guy, was a good editor. His leadership capabilities will be tested this elections.
And Velenkosi Nhlabisa.
An worm, like that uncle that you like respect. That's Mr. Hlabisa. He is obviously leading the IFP at a very difficult time, and he will be judged on whether he can fill the big shoes of Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
And the big one, they say save the best for last, Mr. Jacob Zuma.
An old man that should be enjoying his retirement and has no business leading a political party or political rallies. He's old, he is sick, and the people around him should allow him to rest and enjoy time with his grandchildren.
But then he's saying he's not happy with the state of the country. He wants to fight for us, the poor, and make sure that we are liberated properly.
He was in the union buildings for 19 years. 19, my guy. You think one more year is going to make a difference? 19 years!
So him, he can have another 5-year reign.
To do what?
He never finished his second term.
He says he still has a lot to do. And I'm like, we know what you were doing the last time around. We okay without that.
Part 2 will be coming up, ladies and gentlemen. As you can tell, there's a lot for us to discuss. But thank you so much for tuning in. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
We really, really do appreciate it. It's All Things Perspective. Do like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be great.